really what this episode is all about is doing an honest assessment of who you're letting in your life and at what depth and at what breadth. And to start to ask yourself, what do I want and what do I need this year as it relates to relationships? Hello, and welcome to the Unlock Lab. I'm your host, Tosca DiMatteo, and I'm so glad you're here. I am so excited about the topic I'm talking to you about today. This is episode number 46, and it's the first part of a series I'm doing about building intentional relationships. Before I dive in, because I know once I get started, I'm not going to stop, let me just pause. If you're new to the podcast and say welcome. I'm Tosca DiMatteo and I'm the founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting. The work that I do is at the intersection of personal growth and professional breakthroughs. I do keynote talks, facilitate intimate conversations, and do one-on-one coaching, just to name a few of the formats in which I help you unlock what's holding you back in your career. If you want to learn more about how I can support you, your team, or your conference, please visit CoachTosca.com. That's CoachTosca.com. Relationships is one of my major life themes. I do so much work around relationships, including the one that I have with myself. I think that in this era of a lot of people feeling really lonely and a lot of people struggling to find their people, this is a really important topic. Think about it. Our relationships impact so much of our lives. It impacts how we feel about ourselves. It impacts how we feel about our journey of getting to where we want to be. It impacts whether we feel lonely or supported. It's so important, but I think we don't get the tools that we need to really improve this part of our life in a major way. We get patterns in how we are in relationship to ourselves and to others early on in our life. And if we don't do that deep work of understanding what's serving us and what's not serving us, we could be leaving a lot of our own potential and happiness on the table. And that's why I want to talk to you in a deep way about relationships to help you shift things in your life. So I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're tuning in. And I would love to hear from you because I know that when you do this work of understanding that you deserve quality relationships in your life will change for the better. So let's get at it. You may or may not have heard that saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I'm not sure I 100% buy into that, but what it does do is helps me to see maybe is it time for me to really consider who I've been spending a lot of time with? Have I outgrown anyone in that circle? Is it time to up level? Are people not coming with me on the next leg of the journey? So that kind of question can be helpful to just consider, oh, if I'm the average of these 5 people, does that make me feel good? Or is there some work to do? Another reason why I want to spend a few episodes on this is because I think we vastly undervalue and underestimate what it takes to maintain our most important relationships. And this is beyond our significant other, which gets all the focus in our society, it gets the focus in the books, in the movies, and everything else. And I'm someone who has always valued my friendships, my networks, and my chosen family. These have always taken center stage in my life. And I think for some people, they just forget that these are a really important part of our community beyond our family, especially folks who have really strong family structures. Sometimes it's easy to forget, oh, I need to maintain these other relationships in my life as well. But, that's also a choice. You can choose not to. But this episode is all about really getting you to think deeply about your relationships, about how you're managing them, how you're being intentional with them. I think one of the most dangerous things we can do is to take relationships for granted. Because when you do, this is when you are at risk of losing them. Disappearing for a few years, maybe because you've had a baby or because your career got really busy or because you have a new love in your life, Disappearing for a few years to focus on those things may not guarantee that your solid friendships are going to remain intact and show up for you down the line when all of a sudden either you're struggling or you're realizing you're missing those relationships in your life. And I'm not saying there are not phases of your life where certain relationships are most important or more important to invest in. But what I am saying is that for those that you really care about being in your world, it does take effort to make sure you are keeping them in your world and that you have to do your work in that equation as well. Now, I have said a lot on this podcast and in everything I share that personal growth leads to professional breakthroughs. And what that means is on your journey of personal growth, not everyone is meant to come to the next level with you. And I've talked in the past about how hard it can be to lose relationships because of that. But it is a natural part of the transformation process. It's going to happen inevitably when you continue to grow and get to that next level of vibration. That might even include the folks you have working on your team, the vendors that you hire, even the cleaning person you bring into your home. Like, no part of your life is untouched by the implications of when you are on that path of growth and getting to the next level of you. So hang in for the ride, folks, because, well, this process of really building intentional relationships is life changing and can make a huge difference in your peace, fulfillment, and contentment in your life. It doesn't mean it's easy. It definitely doesn't mean it's easy. But first things first, right? The relationships that we have with others, first and foremost, starts with the one that you have with yourself. I mean, so much of this whole podcast really is about just that. It's about how you're treating yourself, who you are being, and being intentional with how you want to show up in all the places and spaces that you're in. This is foundational. And this truth will be weaved in to this series, but I'm not going to spend a specific chunk of time talking about the relationship we have with ourselves. I think that will just be revealed as we look at relationships with others. And our relationship patterns very much stem from how we see ourselves and how we treat ourselves. Our life experiences, our joys, our traumas, our trials, and our tribulations, they all play a role in how we're treating ourselves and therefore how we are in relationship with others. And this is why on that path to professional breakthrough, so much of the work is about our internal world and our operating system. So if at any point in these conversations you get a little stuck, you get a little confused, hopefully you won't get confused. Hopefully this will be clear. But if you do, the first place to start is with yourself and ask yourself, how is this making you feel? What are you saying to yourself? What is triggering about these things? Maybe why are these things triggering for you, right? You can come back to your response, your reaction, as opposed to looking at the outside first. Okay. So that's just the ground level of where we start with this work. And I wanted to not skip that beat. Did you know that I offer one-on-one leadership coaching support? If not, visit coachtosca.com to learn more. You are in a great position early on in the year to set yourself up for success, to set yourself up to reach those goals. It's hard to do it alone, and it's hard to see what patterns are no longer serving us on our own. Reach out. I'd love to set up a free exploratory call with you today. We're still in the beginning of the year, and we're so primed and conditioned to think about our goals for the year. What are we trying to manifest? All those things. And I think what we rarely do is actually take a look at this relationship piece of our life, like in isolation. So, the first thing I'm going to invite you to do is to set your intent as it relates to relationships. Now, you can look at that holistically about relationships, regardless of that aspect of your life, or you can take a look at relationships in different arenas of your life. However, you want to skin that cat, your choice. I've done this for myself over the course of the past several years. And I think the past several years have really upended a lot of my relationship patterns. And it's been tough, but it's been so freaking valuable. And I'll just give you some examples of some of my intents because I think it might help. And they may sound a little crass, I'm not going to lie, but I'm just being honest with you about where I've been on this journey. One of my recent intents was basically I said it in the form of a mantra, and that mantra was love me or get the fuck out of my way. Pardon my language. But really, what this was about discernment and honoring if someone wasn't for me, then I gave myself permission to move on. This was about breaking my habits of like trying to get people to like me, even if I could sense that they just weren't on my side. So just really looking at my interactions, looking at the truth of how I felt about certain folks and honoring that if they're not for me, then move aside, to put it more nicely. Another quasi intent for me in recent years was to be discerning about who I let into my innermost circle. And that led to another mantra, which was access is a privilege. And that may sound like it comes from ego, but it really isn't. And that's because of my history and patterning in relationships. It really has to do with allowing way too many people to have way too much access without having the reciprocity that I deserved. And I mean reciprocity, not in a tit for tat kind of way, but really needing to look at the truth of what these relationships were in my life. So set your intent. Maybe this is a year for building a bigger network. Maybe it's a year for diversifying who you surround yourself with. Maybe it's a year of being more discerning about who gets your energy because you have big dreams and goals to go after and you don't have time to be drained or the energy because you need to pour it back into yourself, right? These are some of the kinds of intents that you can set. Maybe your intent is to be open to new types of people in your life. Maybe your intent is to be around people that lift you up and make you feel good. The list can go on and on. And just having an intent is so powerful because it helps you find clarity about maybe what's missing in your life, what you want to enhance in your life, what you want to continue to build on in your life. And that will help you build awareness about what the truth really is. And speaking about the truth, that's really what comes next. The next step after your intent is to do an honest assessment. Are you in relationships for the potentiality of what they could be? Or are you in relationships based on who they are being right now in your life? This is a big concept around truth versus illusion. And y'all, I'm telling you, I have been in a lot of relationships where I didn't even realize I was living in an illusion. And I'm a truth teller and I'm someone that can see through things. And I just had such deep patterns and also relationships that I had been in for a long time where I needed kind of big brick to forehead experiences to say, look at what's really happening here. And you know what? I don't want that to happen to you. Like, I don't want you to have big experiences with relationships in your life for you to be able to actually see the truth. We can see the truth without that happening to us. And that's what I'm wishing for you and calling in for you right now. Another part of assessment is to really look at how many layers of friends do you have? Are you putting them all at the same level? Like the way that I imagine this is like an image of like a target, right? With like these circles that go out and might get bigger and bigger, kind of like the target circle, right? And not everybody deserves to be in your innermost circle. And not everyone should be in the outer rungs either, right? We should have these layers, like also like an onion, right? And personally, I used to put everybody in that innermost circle of my life. Like everybody got all of me and all of my energy. And gosh, it didn't work. It wasn't healthy. I had to realize that not all relationships are equal. And thank God, because who has the energy for everyone in your life at the same level, right? That's tough. So when you think about, gosh, where are these people in your life in this like concentric circles kind of way? Who do you want to pull in closer? You can ask yourself that. Who is out there that you're like, gosh, I really, really enjoy this person. I'd love to build a stronger relationship with them. And then who do you need some space from? Maybe who is draining you? Who is bringing a lot of negativity into your life? Who's not offering reciprocity, who's maybe not reaching out to you ever unless they need something, right? And who do you need, therefore, space from? These are kind of two very simple questions you can ask yourself. It makes me think of a few years ago, actually, it was during the pandemic, and I was doing one on one birthday celebrations for obvious reasons. And I really asked myself, who do I want to celebrate with? There was one person I invited to celebrate with me who was somebody that I had a few interactions with, but we hadn't developed a deep relationship, but I just knew I really liked her. And I asked her, I said, you know what? Would you want to celebrate with me? I'd love to go out to eat together for my birthday. And she said yes. And let me tell you, life changing. That intention of building a stronger relationship with her was life changing because she became a really, really great friend of mine. Do that honest assessment of who's in your life, where are you placing them, and trust your instincts about what you see in terms of what shifts are going to serve your highest good. And look, this can include relationships in all aspects of your life, personal and professional, right? Who you choose to have lunch with, what coworker you allow to dump on you, who, and when I say dump, I mean they're dumping their problems, but they're not looking for solutions. They're not looking to change. They're not looking to look in the mirror, right? That's what I mean by like dumping. Maybe it's even vendors. Maybe it's somebody that you hired and you're just like, man, this is not working. And identifying those folks, gosh, that can really make a huge difference in your day to days and also your results, right? These messages and the vibrations and the people that you have in your life have a huge impact on your mood, on your outlook, on your perspective in life. It's kind of like this idea of you are what you eat or you are the media that you consume. Like, I'm not saying that, right? But you know what I mean? Like that, what you're letting into your life in terms of media exposure, it's no different than this idea of who are you letting in your life relationship wise? Who are you listening to? And are you listening to people that have your respect, that maybe have been where you want to go? Or are you listening to people that maybe aren't really the credible person for you to look for counsel from? Another thing that I think we can miss sometimes in our assessment of who's around us is if we're around people that have hints of jealousy, if we're around people who see your wins as a reflection on what they don't have. That can be really damaging. It makes me think of a relationship I had that I stayed in way too long. And I had a really big moment with this person where I made a very difficult decision in my life. I made a decision to leave corporate. And that was so hard for me for so many reasons. Her response was, well, yeah, no big deal. You have your husband. Gosh, it was just such a big blow because she couldn't see the courage it took to do that. She couldn't see how nervous I was and how unstable that felt and all the things. And that was a really big sign for me. Like there was definitely jealousy in that. And I don't want to say I ignored it because I definitely communicated that, but it was one of those red flags that I should have been way more cautious about moving forward. So I want you to sit with all of this. I want you to let it marinate. Like I could keep going, but really what this episode is all about is doing an honest assessment of who you're letting in your life and at what depth and at what breadth. And to start to ask yourself, what do I want and what do I need this year as it relates to relationships? Again, all areas of your life. Take some time to explore, take some time to observe your relationships. And one really simple thing you can do is after you interact with somebody, anybody, could be somebody at work, could be somebody you're dating, could be a friend of 15 years. ask yourself how you feel after that interaction. And that interaction can be a text, it can be a conversation, it could be an email, it could be anything. Because how you feel after that interaction can be really telling. And if you do that over and over again, you'll see the pattern. One of the relationships in my life that I realized I had overstayed in, I realized it after I honored how I felt after a text interaction. And I was like, wow, this feels gross. And I realized, yeah, I don't need to feel this way. And this was a friend, right? So we can find this truth in our relationships, I think pretty easy if you're paying attention and allowing yourself to see again what is versus what you're hoping it could be or will be. Yeah. Gosh, I love this conversation because it's so important and you deserve to be surrounded by people that support you and uplift you. And this is the first step. In subsequent episodes, I'm going to talk about those key components of healthy relationships. And I'm even doing a guest interview with a networking expert because part of your relationship intent might be to build your network out. And so that's going to be a great episode. I already recorded it. It's with Julie Brown, and she wrote a book on networking. She's super passionate about it, and you're going to love that conversation. So that's going to be a part of this series, or it'll be the kind of cherry on top of this series, I think. But if you have any questions at all, if you get stuck at this stage, by all means, reach out to me. You can find me by looking in the show notes and getting in touch. But I'm so glad you're here because I know how having quality relationships in your life can really change the game. And I want that for you in 2025. All right. If you enjoyed this episode or this podcast, please, I would love for you to rate, review, or like this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. That would be awesome to get this into more homes and having more ears listening to these topics that can create big breakthroughs. All right, with that, I look forward to being with you next time. So be sure to tune in to episode 47 and ciao for now.